AskReddit, what's a weird or scary childhood memory you didn't realize the seriousness of until you were an adult? My brother and I were in the garage. I was very young. Maybe 3 or 4. He was 2 years older than me. He was practicing swinging this bat around. I walked behind him because kids are stupid, and naturally he hit me with the bat on the backswing. Blood was coming out of my nose, and I was just starting to wail. I could see my brother through the tears. The look of panic on his face. At this point though, it was still just a terrible accident, and it should have been chalked up to that. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is that my brother, now facing me, clutching the bat with both hands, still a look of panic on his face as he was trying to get me to stop screaming. He realized there was no consoling me. So he took the bat with both hands and he hit me across the face with it. Again. Before he ran out of the garage without looking back. Years later my brother was facing an assault with a deadly weapon charge, that he was swearing up and down to all of us that he was not guilty of. It was all a terrible mistake. That memory came back to me. That moment when we were kids. When he had that bat in the garage. When he accidentally hit me across the face the first time, but that second time. That was no accident. He was trying to silence me. For good. All I was to him, in that moment, was a problem. He'd rather me be dead and silent than alive and tattling on him. I didn't testify against him, but I wouldn't be a character witness for him either. He's out of prison now. We don't talk much. I remember waking up on our couch and being very bothered that I had been taken from my nice warm bed but too sleepy to say anything. My mom and dad were in the next room screaming at each other, and then mum came to me crying and telling me not to fall asleep. I passed out, woke up laid across the back seat of my pawpaw, struck in the dark with my mum crying in the front seat and my aunt holding me crying. Pawpaw just stared straight ahead like he was mad. Woke up again in a bright room, being jostled around and pinched. Next time I woke up I was back in bed and thought it was a dream. 20 years later I am informed that, age 3, my fever spiked and both mom and dad unknowingly gave me medicine. Those meds reacted to each other and I had a seizure, but dad had to go to work and could not be bothered, so my aunt and pawpaw took me to the hospital. Ambulance takes longer. In the truck I was turning blue. The bright room was the ER, and the pinches were multiple leaves and tubes and such being placed. I was there, out like a light, for 3 days. We had a school that was next to some woods, and I used to go there with my sister to play during the summer. We were probably 7 and 9. This guy with a leash asked us to help him look for his dog. At first we were both calling for it, and then he started walking into the woods saying he thought he went in there. My stupid ass at 7 just followed him, but my sister stopped and said no OP. It's time to go. Grabbed my hand and we ran home. I was angry as a child that we never found the dog. As an adult I realized that my sister saved my ass from some serious shit that was about to go down. We never did tell our parents because we were afraid of getting in trouble. We were stupid kids. One time, when I was about 10, I was practicing holding my breath in the pool while my uncle, who was living with us at the time, watched me. He held me under the water way too long, to the point where my lungs were burning. I honestly thought at the time that he was just helping me build my endurance, but I later found that he, my mother and all their siblings were horrendously abused by the father, and my uncle had developed severe anger issues. So I guess he was taking some of that out on me. Haven't seen him in years. For a while, in about 2nd grade, we had a bus driver who drove really strangely. He often took different routes, and once he tried to get the bus down a really narrow lane and it got stuck between a building and a tree, and we all had to get out and push. But the kicker was that one day he forgot to drop off me and my friends. He just completely missed our neighborhood, the last area on his route, and went on to pick up kids at the high school. My two friends and I were too scared to speak up. We were sitting in the back seats, until a high schooler yelled, "Hey, there's a bunch of little kids back here." The driver cussed a blue streak, peeled out of the HS parking lot, probably without half his next load of kids, and drove us home. All our moms were hysterical, since we were like an hour late, and this was long before cell phones. Told my mom all about the adventures we had with this guy driving, and the next day we had a new driver. Of course, he had been driving around for weeks, drunk, with a school bus full of kids. I was maybe 14 or 15, so not childhood but teenage years. But me and my dad walked into Home Depot, looked around and found no one. Thought how lucky we were gonna be when there was no line at checkout. Finished our shopping 20 minutes later. Walked to the self-checkout registers because there weren't any cashiers. Walked out and was greeted by multiple police officers with rifles. Dad tells me it's just a training exercise and not to worry about it. About a week later my dad tells me that actually someone was holding employees hostage after their robbery attempt failed in the gardening section of the store. When I was in grade school I walked from my house to school every day about a mile. On my walk was a homeless dude that I would always stop to give my vegetables so my mom would think I ate them. One day a friend from my class pulled over with her mother. Her mother offered to drive me to the school with my friend. I told her no, I had to give that dude my veggies or my mom would get mad if I didn't eat them. Also I know now I could have just tossed them, but I'm a dumb kid. So her mother gets really pushy and is insisting I get in the car, but I just continue on my way. That was the last time I saw that friend. I was little and we weren't super crazy close or anything, so I didn't think anything of it. Later in life I thought about her and asked my mum if she remembered the girl. Turns out her estranged drug addict mom kidnapped her and no one was able to find either of them. We lived close to the Mexico border, so they think she left the US. My mum freaked out when I told her the story and was also kinda mad I used to give my veggies to a homeless dude. When I was like 4 or 5, my mum, brother and I went along with my dad on a business trip to Seattle. I have a distinct memory of being in like a Taco Bell or McDonald's, I can't remember which, but I remember waiting in line, getting in the front, then my mum just taking us and leaving. I remember being so disappointed and my brother and I whining and complaining until we got to the next place. Well, a couple of years ago, I'm 28 now, it somehow came up in conversation and my mum told us the whole story. We got to the front of the line and the cashier said, "Those men over there are robbing us, they have guns. Take your children and leave now." So my mum did exactly that and never told us what happened. When I was little, 6 to 8 maybe, my mum, brother and I were on the train traveling home from visiting family. The train suddenly stopped in the middle of nowhere and we just sat there confused for a minute until my mum saw something and gasped and said, "Don't look out the window." Naturally this piqued our curiosity and we clambered all over our mother to get a look out the window while she tried and failed to hold us back. There was nothing there. Just some sticks and maybe some paint, really nothing worth noting. We were like, "What gives?" And my mother laughed and said, "Gotcha. Were you scared?" We both slumped back into our seats, disappointed, and waited for the train to start moving again. She told us years later that it had been a suicide by train that we had happened across. There is just no way we could have recognized what we were seeing as a human being, and my mum managed to just play it off as nothing, even though it must have been a truly horrifying sight to somebody who knew what they were looking at. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you were at all entertained, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing for future content. Stay safe everyone, until next time.